Hello, everyone. Thank you all for being here. And of course, I thank you for your patience while we got organized. This was a multifaceted event here we're delighted to see each of you here. My name is Penny Wright. Many of you I know, some of you I don't, but we are going to make it quick and get started right away. At first, I'd like to thank our friends and fellow travelers, the Southampton History Museum and the Southampton Arts Center for signing on to and publicizing tonight's event. Though many of you probably know Dorothy Reilly, who made this event happen, some of you do not. And Dar, as she is known, asked me to make this short in order to leave more time for the actual event, so I will. Dorothy Reilly is and has been, over the years, a wife and mother who holds a Master's of Architecture degree with expertise in passive solar and green architecture, a community activist and catalyst for the Southampton Town Energy and Sustainability Committee, the director of the first New York Women's Conference for Sustainability, a yoga teacher, healer, and certified health coach, and a lover of pickleball, singing, ukulele playing, and anything having to do with the ocean. Please welcome Dorothy Reilly.
Thank you so much for all the fantastic programs that you do here. And I would like to thank my husband for making everything I do possible. Thank you, Michael. And it's just amazing to be here with each of you because you are the 1% enlightened ones. You are the ones that are going to make everything happen. And I really applaud you for taking the time to come learn about one more thing that I believe is going to be a paradigm shifting lens for you and bring all of us into this game of Drawdown. I'd like to introduce a few people. Gordy and Rocky, could you stand up, who has been working for 25 years, bringing renewable energy to Long Island. Lynn Arthur, who is the chair of the Energy Committee for the town of Southampton, and she is doing CCA, she'll talk to you more about that. And Gwena Van Gaal, who has created Perfect Earth Project, bringing truly green and indigenous landscapes to every place that she has an impact. Could those of you who are on the Green Committee for the town of Southampton please stand up so people can identify you later? Could you all stand up? Nick and Dieter and Jen and Tip and Ann and John. Thank you so much. You can talk to these people later. And Linda James and anybody else from the East Hampton Green Committee, could you stand up? Francesca Reardon, Ron Matheson, and one over there who I don't recognize. I think you're new to the group, right?
No, Scott.
I'm sorry?
Scott.
Scott, very glad to have you here. So we are going to get started right away. And I know some of you have seen this before. I believe that, like me, you'll get more out of it the second time. So let's go on to this.
Drawdown means that first point in time when greenhouse gases peak and go down on the year after that. How did Drawdown start? It started in 2001 when I read the IPCC summary third assessment. And like the ones that preceded it, it was more pessimistic than the one that followed to get more pessimistic. And the reason for that isn't so much that things have changed, as that there's less discussion of the data. Because there are consensus reports, but there's no such thing as scientific consensus. Science is evidentiary. It's not about consensus. Consensus was in the Saudi Arabians and the Chinese and the Russians and the Venezuelans suppressing the projections and the science of it has to be the people that comprise IPCC. So I read it, I parsed it, I looked at it, we had a big problem. I found about, I was educated in climate change when I was at Stanford Research Institute in the 70s, my chemistry and physics of it. It's pretty straightforward, it's not difficult to understand actually. And so later in that year, I want to show you a slide. there was data presented for the solutions, and everybody was very excited about it. And this is what captured my attention at that time. Actually, the first slide I want to show you before that is really where we are, and where we are is a straight line. And so oftentimes what you hear is language around climate change is about mitigation, about reduction, about stabilization, about net zero. You hear this language. Well, that dotted line, no human being of any shape, manner, or form, even in primate form, has existed on that earth when the levels of CO2 were above that dotted line. Right? So anybody who says they know what's going to happen above the dotted line is guessing, maybe an accurate guess, it may be good science, but it's total speculation. You don't know. So in 2001, and even more so now, when people were talking about, and this was 2001, it's just a little bit higher now, 2017. The point being is that we are so far beyond anything that this species, us, has ever encountered or lived with. And that peak to the left, the first peak to the left right there, that's the Eemian period. It was 125,000 years ago. ppm was 285. Okay, in terms of CO2. At that time, there was hippopotami and crocodiles in the Thames River Delta. Sea level was 20 to 30 feet higher across the ocean. There was crocodiles and alligators in Alaska, and lions and giraffes from Germany. And it was a very different climate regime then. And that was 285. We were at 402. So at that time, and especially now, it's really important to name the goal. If you don't name the goal, then probably hit it. If you don't know the goal, if you don't understand the goal, and the goal is drawdown. So when you use words like words you use like mitigation and reduction and slowing down, it's really like Thelma and Louise in slow motion. If you're going over a cliff and you slow down, you're going to go over the cliff more slowly. Okay? But if you're going down the wrong road and you slow down, it's still the wrong road. And so the language around how we should address this problem has been very, as I say, what's the word? Weak-kneed, and not really helpful. Somebody said to me, well, John, what an ambitious goal. I said, no, I'm not ambitious. You guys are really not ambitious. You're unambitious. You don't know. You know, it's like this is not ambitious. This is about preserving civilization. This is about creating conditions in which music, art, right? Agriculture, knowledge, grow, virgin, blossom. This is for us. This is this perfect Holocene period of climatic stability that civilization emerged. And now we're supposed to reduce that or stabilize that. There is no stability on that line. No such thing. So what I saw there was this, the Carbon Mitigation Initiative of Princeton in 2001, the same year, came out with famous global wedges. These are 8 wedges at 1 billion tons each. If run together, would stabilize emissions by 2050. Right? Stabilize. Notice peak. Okay. And I looked at them, and these are the 15 solutions that comprise those 8 wedges. And I looked at them in a different way. I looked at them like this, which is all those are grayed out. Those are solutions that only can be done by large corporations. I mean, large conservative corporations. Like we're talking about energy and utility and car companies. All 11 of those. And at that time, those solutions were deeply underwater financially. That is to say, if the even more conservative boards of directors of those corporations said, great, let's do it, they would be sued for fiduciary responsibility, and these corporations would have lost their balance sheet if they did. So in other words, and that's when I started to get concerned. It's like, this is solutions? I don't get it. I don't get it. And furthermore, what can you do? Drive less, you. Put a solar panel on the roof. That's it. What can cities do? Cities are not there. Towns, villages, communities, neighborhoods, small businesses, farmers, grasslands, forestlands. They weren't there. Really, the people weren't there. There's this thing, it's all about things, you know. And so I went around at that time and talked to friends at NRDC and worked with Sarah Club, EDF, and said, we should make a list, we should figure out what it is we can do. We don't know what we can do. I want to know. I'm just like you. What can I do? What can we do? Let's figure out how to solve it. And it's a great idea. And let's figure out the carbon impact and what would happen in 30 years. Is drawdown possible? Even possible at all? Maybe it's not. Who knows? And what would it cost? You know? And it's a great idea. We don't have the expertise. So I don't either. And so I kept asking others to do it, and no one did it, and I forgot about it. Okay. And I forgot about it until 2012 when Bill McKibben's piece, Global Warming is Terrifying, the Math, came out in Rolling Stone, and Jim Hansen had a piece in the New York Times. And I had friends come to me and say, literally, quote, it's game over. It's game over. I tried, I worked hard, it's futile. And my response, or inside of going, I'm going to move to the Squamish Valley. I'm going to British Columbia. It's like, as if that was the solution. And I thought, well, maybe actually it's the other way around. Maybe it's game on. And there's that level of, frankly, in this case, terror. You know? If you Google the top 10 solutions to global warming or climate change, right now, these are two esteemed scientific organizations. These are the top 5. Don't forget to put that power strip in your entertainment center. It's like, I mean, the problem, the solutions that are proffered out there are proverbs. They're not solutions, they're proverbs. Like, love your mother, good idea. And you know, don't forget the power strip, good idea, and wash it in cold water, and, you know, change the light bulb, you know. And what's happened is the communication around climate change and global warming has been like, well, this is what you can do, and, you know, okay. And as if it all was on your shoulders, really. You know, I mean, the implication, or that if you didn't do it, then you feel guilty, and you feel bad about yourself. But these are so cute. These are forego fossil fuels. I try it for 24 hours. Try it. Can you burn till it's shipped in? You can't. You know, I mean, think about it. And it's very difficult to do. Move closer to work. You know, I mean, you know, like you can afford that. You know. I'm moving to downtown Seattle. I'm rich. Okay. So this is the book. Drawdown, the most comprehensive plan ever proposed. Katie emphasized ever, I like that. To reverse global warming. Well, let me explain the first part of that title, ever proposed. The reason we can say the most comprehensive plan ever proposed is that no one's ever proposed a plan. It's like, we had the high ground and we still have it. We could say the most brilliant, literate, nuanced, artistic, whatever, we could say whatever we want on that title and it'd be true, okay? Because there's nothing to compare it with, you know, which is sort of astonishing when you think about it. I'll get back to that. And so, yeah, that's the book. And this is what it looks like conceptually. And it shows that point, that inflection point is drawdown, and that's the goal. We want to inflect. We want to go the other way. And what's affecting our perception around this is how we get the news. And how we get the news is really usually in headlines, usually with a sense of threat, of doom, or gloom. It may not be true in this room, and certainly the greater mass of people in the United States, around the world, get the news this way. You know, and I love this one, because as you can see over here, you know, you have clickbait. You know, the wife smashes husband's head with frog ornament and kept him mummified in layers of sheeting for 18 years, and here's the Tower Bridge, you know, being overtaken by a tsunami, obviously from rising seas, and they're there as if they were like, you know, on level of importance. And here's Lamar Smith, the guy in Congress who always, you know, says climate change is a conspiracy.
This is a good one too, which is, severe consequences and the real reason that so many women have to spend so much time getting ready. Okay. So, so when you present information, the science is actually good on this headlines. They're accurate, and 20 things you never knew you could do with Coca-Cola. Actually, they're doing the right thing with Coca-Cola. They're putting it down the toilet. But and this one, the bottom, it says the effects will be felt for 10,000 years. Which is that's a game over headline if I ever saw one. And that's Peter Bates at Oregon State. It's a very good paper, and the only thing I can say about that paper is obviously he's not a farmer or a gardener. And then, so, Drawdown. Who are we? Well, we're not me. We had no money. And I went to foundations and said, we want to do this thing. And they said, well, show us when you get it done. We're going to need the money now. And I said, well, okay. Anyway, so I borrowed money from my retirement plan and gave money had been given to me to write a book by an Italian philanthropist. I gave that, and so we started, but we had no money to hire a really great staff, and a big staff, that is. So we put out the call around the world to academics and students for Drawdown fellows, or research fellows. And we were overwhelmed with the most amazing resumes. People, I've won the Ivor Kahn Award, I'm a White House fellow, I'm a Rhodes Scholar, I'm a this. So they had better resumes at 26 than I have now. And they're just these astonishing people all over the world. And this is who they are. And not all of them, but that's a lot of them. Almost half are women, 40%, half have PhDs. They all have advanced degrees. They're from 22 countries, 6 continents. And this is Drawdown. This is who did the research. And Chris Wright, where are you? He's here. We have a fellow here tonight. Right there. He's waving in the back. You can stand up, okay? Yeah. And I felt like if we're going to do this, it has to be a coalition. It has to be a collaboration. It has to be us talking to us, we talking to we, not a white charismatic male vertebrate saying, I've got a plan. We've got one in the White House. That's the worst thing you want, is a white male with a plan. So that's just not going to cut it. And so we needed, men and women with an idea and with a heart and with a passion and with great scientific minds. And we also got 128 advisors. These are some of them. And along with the 128 advisors, we have about 40 outside expert science reviewers. And so what we did is just collect all these solutions. We were going to map, measure, and model the top 100 solutions to reverse global warming. That was our self-imposed mandate. And so we started gathering them all and going through them, winnowing them, looking, checking, doing back of the napkin stuff. And one by one, we accumulated this list that's in the book. And some of them dropped out when we got deeper into them, and we had to add some, but basically it came down to 80 that we modeled and 20 which we call coming attractions, they're valid scientifically, but there's really not sufficient data in terms of the carbon or the financial impact. We modeled both the carbon impact and the financial. What was the cost? What's the return? What's the net operating savings? What's the lifetime savings, etc. So we did both. And on the carbon, we only used peer-reviewed science. Okay? That's the only input we used. Not anecdotal science, not internet science. We used real science. And we also did it in such a way that we always chose the more conservative number. When we had a choice, we always went conservative. And the criticism we got for what you're going to see from our advisors and from our outside scientific experts was, you're too conservative. It's lower, it's too low, it's better, it's cheaper, there's more impact. And that's exactly the criticism we wanted. That was on purpose. We want people to say, it's better than that. Not that you egg the pudding or, fluffed it up, anything like that. And so what we do, we just do math. That's what we do. And the math has been done on what's going to happen if we don't act, but it has not been done on the top solutions to global warming. An anthropologist is going to have to figure out why we didn't do that. I don't know. I have no explanation. Don't ask me in the Q&A. I don't know. I spent 16 years, well, counting up to now 16 years, but 13 years, asking other people, so like Diogenes, and I was, good idea, and okay. And so what you see here, and the first one is the rank by 2050, and that rank is carbon impact. There's only two things you can do about the atmosphere with respect to global warming. Stop putting greenhouse gases up there, which is conservation, efficiency, or substitution, or sequestration, which is photosynthesis, forest, wildlands, grasslands, and bring it back to Earth, bring it back home where it came from, okay? So this is the measurement in 2050. This is the number of gigatons, which is billion tons, so it's 16.6 billion tons of CO2 that is reduced, avoided, or sequestered, depending on the solution. This is the net cost. The net cost is the cost compared to what you would do if you weren't going to do this. Would it be combined cycle gas? Would it be a coal plant, depending on which country, where? And would this cost more or less? In this case, it actually costs less. And then the last figure is over the lifetime to 2050, how much money would it cost? Would you make money or lose money? In this case, you would save $1.02 trillion. Right? And so we'll just go whizzing through this. This is improved rice production. Rice is a big source of methane, and if you change the production methodology, it costs nothing. Take the water off the paddy in the middle and let it become aerobic again. It's anaerobic before then and after. And you increase productivity, you get a better yield, you can space your plants farther apart, it actually costs less, you produce more, it produces methane production by 50%. As you can see, the cost is one farmer walking across his field to the next one and teaching. That's it. There's zero cost to this solution. But it saves a lot of money. This is offshore wind. This is not Photoshop. This is in Sheringham Shoal in Norfolk, and it's a triathlete going by the Siemens 3 megawatt wind turbine. And I'll get back to wind coastal wetlands. This is nuclear. We got criticized from Sierra Club and Greenpeace. How could you put nuclear in that? And it's a good question. It's a fair question. We put it in because our mandate was to map, measure, and model the 100 top solutions to global warming. That doesn't mean we're advocates of them. It doesn't mean that there's not solutions in here that have spillover effects. It doesn't mean there's not solutions here that are we call regret solutions. Most of them are no regrets, which we should do them if there was no climate science whatsoever. We should do them. They have so many benefits in terms of peace and security and health and well-being and jobs. But some of them are the other way around. This is certainly one of them. But the reason we did it is because we had to maintain our objectivity. If we start saying, I don't like this solution, I'm going to leave it out, or this one's a really cool one, I like it, my friends are doing it, then the whole book and all our work would be completely suspect and thrown out. So that's why it's included. I happen to think it's the most ridiculous way people have ever invented to boil water, but I mean, that's all it does, is boil water. I mean, let's be real, there's no magic to this. It's just, This is a rooftop solar, and again, what we try to do with the imagery is to try to open up the get rid of the cliches around these things. Not a drone shot of Atlanta, suburbs with solar panels and shingled roofs. It's like, how inspiring is that? And here's an early woman in Lake Titicaca with her 2 daughters living on a straw island, which will sink if she doesn't replace the straw every 3 months. And she was using kerosene at night on a straw island. And now she has a solar panel. No wonder she's grinning. Of course. Not only is she safe, but her daughters can read and learn at night. Okay? So we wanted to make sure we could look at these solutions in a broader canvas, and not just as inanimate objects, that are sold and have, are renewable as an energy source that have many more applications than that. This is the number 10 solution. This is one of my favorites called Educating Girls. And this is, I might as well hit this right now, number 6, way up there. You know the drill, I'm sure you do, from Girls Rising here, Brooklyn, and the Girl Effect, and so much work has been done in this area, which is what happens if a girl isn't taken out of school in 5th and 6th grade at puberty or pre-puberty and married off by her culture or family or for whatever reason. And what happens is she gets to choose to be a woman on her own terms instead of being imposed upon. And her rate of reproduction goes from 5, if average, and higher in certain countries. And if she's allowed to go to 10th, 11th, 12th grade, then she then is a very different person. And the average reproduction rate is 2, which is below replacement rate. And she, because of her education, earns more. She puts more resources into her children. Her sons and daughters do the same thing as she did in terms of their family planning. And the impact is significant. I want to get back to this because it's really important. This is the Great Bear Forest, the Kermode bear. And this is forest protection. It doesn't rank high, because they're there already, so we're not going to make too many new primary forests, but you see in the bottom the amount of carbon, CO2 protected, it's actually put in just pure carbon equivalents, 300 billion tons, 196 billion tons of CO2. So it's very, very important. This is rainforest protection and restoration, the number 5 solution. This is regenerative agriculture. Again, very important. And this is managed grazing or AMP grazing or holistic resource management or rotational grazing. There's lots of words for it. And this is also one, and I want to say this in terms of land use, because one of the things you see on the internet is people sort of making very outlandish, even on TED Talks, by the way, very claims for this and other land use solutions, like we can reverse levels of CO2 back to industrial levels in 10 years, things like that. And it's giving soil, and the scientists call the soil people, don't know what they're talking about, it's giving it a bad name in a way to make these outlandish claims. And so one of the things we're able to do is take land use, and because you can only model something unless we couldn't model it unless there was science. And like there's no science for agroforestry, but there is for tree intercropping, for multi-strata agroforestry, for silvopasture. So we can model those, and so it ended up breaking up land use into very specific categories, and then measuring them very accurately as opposed to just guessing, which we didn't want to do. This is women smallholders. As you may know, 80%, almost 80% of the food in the world is produced by smallholders, the other name for small farms. And 43% of those small farmers are women. And the other 20% is big ag, and big ag will have you think that if we don't support them and let them kill our butterflies in our soil and poison us, that somehow we're going to starve. And yet what they produce is corn and soy and palm oil and sugar, mainly, for pigs and cows and trans fats and diabetes. And this is, they don't feed us at all. This idea that somehow they feed us is simply not true. They feed us. This is where, yeah. And so in this case, what's the solution? The solution is that she gets the same seeds, tools, and information that men get. That's all it is. And what happens is she produces a lot more food, and the impact on forests and so forth is less, and nutrition gets better. And this is a cool dude in Berlin on his electric bike. I know, he's so cool. Nutrient management, which is just a runoff from the fertilizers we don't really need. And this one, can you guess what this is? Thank you, yes, household recycling. This is a Dasanat woman in Ethiopia. And they built a bridge across from her village, and they put a bar there for the workers. And so the women go across the river every day and pick up the bottle caps and SIM cards and things, and make these beautiful headdresses. And now they sell them to boutiques in France. Beautiful, beautiful women. This one is a transport solution. I should have more transport, bus, trains, cars also, so I should put more on here. So this is the one transport solution we do have. And this guy, he works at PricewaterhouseCoopers, the former accountant for the Oscars. And and he's waving to this guy on the iPad who's got his little mini Segway scooter scooting around the office. He's in Toronto, the guy who's waving. The guy on the iPad is in Prague. And so he can just go to Toronto, log on, and then start to scoot around the office and go and call on people. He could come in here and be back of the room in the meetings, and he could come up to the microphone, ask a question, and that'd be a little kinky. But you know what I'm saying? So we're shipping around the world this protoplasm instead of ideas. We want people's ideas. We're shipping this whole big bag of protoplasm. Anyway, so it's a solution. So we were so surprised when the numbers came out. We didn't get them until 12 weeks ago. So we prepared the book, designed the book, and had all camera-ready copy or visual-ready copy except the numbers. And we wanted to work on the numbers to the very last second before Penguin yanked it out of our clutches. And because they're never going to be right, the numbers. It's just endless, And so when we got them, we were like, oh my God, we're so surprised, and you had to recheck, and this, and you're sure, and yes, and everything was right. And it was so interesting because I had a friend at that time who I'd known for years, and she went to Paris, COP21. I said, we're working on Drawdown at that time, and she said, are you going? I said, no, I'm working, I'm going to stay here and work. And I said, I'll make a bet that there's nobody in Paris at COP21, the Continental Parties, that knows the top 10 solutions. In any order, just write them down. Give everybody a piece of paper. And I said, I bet no one knows. And I said, well, we don't know. You know that. I'm pretty sure no one else does. Anyway, she called up just when we finished the numbers. She said, how are you doing? And I said, great, we have the numbers. And I said, I won't say her name because you know her. And I said, she's been in climate for 30 years. She's written books. She has been a grantee. She's been a grantor. She knows climate. I mean, cold. And I said, we were so surprised at the top 5 solutions. I said, I don't think anybody in the world knows the top 5 solutions to global warming. I'm talking about Al Gore and Jeffrey Sachs and Christiana Figueres and Ban Ki-moon and you name it. I said, we didn't know, that's for darn sure, but I don't think anybody knows. You guys, these two guys right here, how old are you? Yeah, I bet you both of them can name the top 5 teams in the NBA right now, so. Right? I mean, come on, I mean, this is not, I mean, yeah, of course. It's like, and here we're 4 years into the biggest crisis civilization has ever faced, and there's nobody that can name the top 5 solutions. I don't know what to say. Anyway, what's surprising us is this. The number 3 solution is reducing food waste. Didn't see that coming. We can understand, once we saw the numbers, we can work backwards and say, yeah, it all adds up. It added up. Yeah. Number 4 solution, plant-rich diet. Yeah. Now, this doesn't mean vegan or vegetarian, unless you choose to. It's fine, no problem. What it means is reducing the animal intake of protein in Western nations to a level where you actually are healthy. And that's all, which is not 80 grams or 100 grams a day. That is not healthy. It doesn't matter where you think you're getting it or what paleo diet you're on. It's not healthy. But it also includes raising the caloric and protein content for people who have insufficient nourishment in the world. So we didn't just reduce the West, or the wealthier countries. We actually increased caloric and protein content in those countries, and it still came out as number 4. So, so what surprised us is that the food sector is bigger than energy. And again, we looked at it and went, well, so look at this carefully, and you would think, what's the solution to global warming? Oh, solar wind, EVs, and solar wind, and don't eat too much meat. And then you think, that's it, they have a whole pass to the 22nd century. Not a chance, that's not true. That's just not true. What we've been hearing over and over and over again, those are critically important solutions. They're all important, but I'm just saying, the idea that there's just these few things we can do, and okay, you know. And you just hear it all the time, that mantra. And here's the top 20. I'll go back, sorry. And yeah, Silver Pasture, number 9. Again, the whole thing is, who knew? Who knew? We go say, who knew? That was their mantra at Drawdown. Like, you know, but we've done the math rigorously. It's been reviewed and re-reviewed and studied, and it's on peer-reviewed literature. And every one of these solutions is scaling. Every one of these solutions is can-do, practical, hands-on. WW Granger, they're happening right now. They're not things we could do if only all of them we're doing them. They're all scaling. We understand them very, very well. Okay, make that very clear. Food is 8 of the top 20. Again, okay. Energy is 5 of the top 20, and you have solar and wind. Now, you don't have wind. The one you saw is 22, but if you add 22 with offshore wind and onshore, which is number 2, you put them together and they're number 1, not refrigerant management, which you saw on the other slide. However, this is the top solution, standalone solution, which we are actually sort of disappointed to find out. Not that it is not a great solution. It's just that the HFCs, the gases in refrigeration and AC, have a global warming potential that's thousands of times greater than CO2. So it doesn't take much for these to. This is well in place. This is what I want you to look at. Here's educating girls again, but look at the next one after, it's family planning. That number, 59.6 twice, okay, is 119.2 billion tons of avoided emissions in 2050. That's the real number. We separated them because the pathway in terms of educating a girl versus a family planning clinic for a woman, so she has reproductive choices and support for her health and her children's health, are very, very different pathways. They end up in the same thing. There's no bright line between the impact. You can't say, well, this comes from that and this comes from that. So we just divide it evenly right down the middle. Point being, add them both up. The number 1 solution to reversing global warming is empowering. Right, again, when's the last time you heard that? And as I said recently in Oakland, it's not a panel, it's a woman. We need solar panels too, you know. But so remember, this was that carbon mitigation initiative. This is what it looks like. This is what it really looks like. This is what the solutions to global warming look like. Look like something you would see in nature, not something you would see from an Excel pie chart. So this one is Drawdown Possible. This is stoma and guardian cells, stomata. They are in every leafing twig in the world, and needle and wrapped. When you hold a handful of these, there's 100 million of them in your hands, and they are the key to drawdown. When stomata are open, they're releasing their moisture, but also eating CO2 for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And so they have to be open to get that, to make sugars, to survive, to live, to grow, to create, put that sugar down in the roots, you know. And when they're closed, obviously they're safe, okay? But they're also can't be closed all the time because they'll starve. So if a plant always is closed, the stomach is always closed, it'll die. If it's always open, it'll die. So obviously stomata do something else, which is they open, close, open, close, open, close. Look out to any landscape, any place in the world, right here is a good one. Look at how many things do you see that are dying in front of you? Not very many. Trees and shrubs and perennials and grasses, they're all living. They're all being made alive by stomata. And recently they were computer modeled, and they discovered that they seem to have memory about temperature going back many days. They can detect temperature, they can detect humidity, they can hear the dawn chorus of birds. They can detect how much moisture is in their the plant, the leaves, and or the needles, or the trunk, whatever it is. They can detect the moisture in their roots. They can detect the moisture in the soil around them. And with all those calculations, temperature, time of day, everything, they open and close, and open and close. Basically, what I'm saying here is that they're friggin' brilliant. Unbelievably brilliant. All those plants are alive. They're doing this thing, you know. Can you imagine if the Republican Party ran the plant world? Boom, gone, you know? I mean, so this extraordinary intelligence, and this is what I hope this works. It does, and this is, you've seen this, I think many of you have seen this, is a NASA simulation of carbon emissions. And you know, the orange and the darker red and the darker red and the vermilion are really meant to symbolize concentrations of CO2 in the atmosphere. And so what you see here is what happens over a span of a year. And what you see in the northern hemisphere, where most people are, and where it's winter, as you can see in the monthly counter and day counter on the bottom, this is winter for most of humanity. And what most of humanity does in the winter is try to keep warm and heater on the car, and you know, in the home. And we're using a lot of power, and we're still working industrially and putting gases up in the atmosphere and making things. That goes and gets worse and worse and worse, and it peaks in May. And you can, the CO2 levels peak, but just in May you start to see these little blue wispy things in the northern hemisphere, and then they become stronger and more pronounced, and they keep doing that through June, July, August, September. Right? So what's happening there? Well, CO2 is being sequestered by the trees leaving out. You see them beautifully right now in Seattle, by the grasses, by crops, farmers who planted things. Those crops are sequestering CO2. And, you know, you don't see much more now, right? Okay. The fact is that every year we draw down 6 to 7 ppm. Drawdown happens every year. I mean, significant. So it goes up and it goes down. The Earth is freezing. So it's not only possible, it's happening. So when we talk about drawdown, we're talking about shifting so we have some equilibrium so that the emissions are not as great as the capacity of the Earth to bring carbon back home on an annual basis. It's not ambitious. It's right in front of us. And what we learn from our research is that we can do it in 30 years with what we know. And so again, on this book, titled, the other word, Plan, this was written by a Stanford intern. There's a verso at the back of the book. He worked a penguin. My editor sent it to me, and I said, no, not a plan. I told you that. And I left it on my desk, not the cover, but just the verso, the most comprehensive plan ever proposed to reverse global warming. And I looked at it, and I thought, oh, he's right, actually. It is a plan. He saw it. Where I was hung up is the idea that we made a plan, and our staff and our fellows, you know, we didn't make a plan. We found it. It is a plan. It's us. We know what to do. We're on the case. We're not numbskulls. We're not stupid, right? We actually care. And we're thinking about our children, the future, this place, this extraordinary home we call Earth, and we're on it. And every one of these solutions is scaling. Every one of these solutions is in place around the world, not in every country, but around the world, and so forth. This is humanity's collective wisdom at work. It didn't come from Paris. It didn't come from a top. It didn't come from a hierarchy. It came from this sort of mysterious way that human beings have of being wise in a collective way they may not understand as an individual. And so this is she's there in the front part of the book. Why? She's our client. That's we had a big picture. That's our client. This is about language. Just briefly, if we're going to do this, we have to change how we talk about it. If you use words like negative emissions and decarbonization and GQ, DQ, I mean, you're just telling the people you're writing to or talking to that they don't know anything you do, and they really aren't part of the problem and the solution. I mean, the language around climate science is guaranteed to alienate people who don't know the lingo or the jargon. It's not necessary, you don't have to use it. If you understand something, you can say it in words that everybody can understand. And so the other thing about language, and there's many things there, but the other thing about language is we have to stop using the metaphors of war. I mean, combat climate change, fighting climate change, stopping climate change, slashing emissions, the war again. I mean, because those verbs, are the verbs of dualism. That's the verb where there's something other out there than you. It's like, I said, not me. So I'm going to fight that thing. It's the enemy. You've got to stop it. Like, well, that's the thinking that caused the problem. Exactly the thinking that caused the problem. Thinking that there's an ocean we could stick plastic into. There's an atmosphere we can put our carbon into. And so we can't solve it with the same mindset that created it. And furthermore, that mindset alienates and divides. So you take those headlines that we saw before, gloom, threat, doom, right? And then you take that rhetoric, and then you take the Scientific American other things like, oh, power strips, and move closer to work, and washing cold water, you go, yeah, okay, and so forth. So now you have a little bit of guilt and shame, you mix it all together, and stir well, you have indifference, numbness, right? Denial, like, I don't know what to do. That's not a way to come together. It's just not a way. We know that. And so really this book also tries to use a different language to engage you, open it up and go, what's that? When you saw the Uru woman, you look on that page in the book for rooftop solar, there's a picture there of the first solar panel in 1884, put on a rooftop in New York City, made of selenium. And we talked about it, we captured it and say in 1882 was the first coal-fired electrical generating plant in the United States. And during that time they started to argue about which would prevail, coal or solar. And now we know, solar. It took a while. But so there's stories in there, and there's things, so it's not like read this at your, oh, by the way, there's polar bears drowning and there's a big hurricane coming and glaciers are carrying like crazy. It's true. But it's not a way to enter into the problem of solving the problem. It's not the way in. And it alienates people. And every second you receive 11 million pieces of information. Your brain, every second. And 40 of them you process, and about 6 or 7 you actually do something about. Okay. So if the constancy of that information is about we're screwed, you're going to get a population that votes for, who. And this is just a quick one. This is part of the dashboard of a model. This is part of the dashboard to give some sense of complexity. David Montgomery's coming here. We have essays from Pope Francis, from Janine Benyus, from Michael Pollan, and David, obviously, and his wife Anne, that are throughout the book. And they're great. We also have coming attractions, and I'll close with this. And these are solutions that are scientifically valid. But there, as I said earlier, there's not economic or scientific data to model them, so we don't model them. Or they're so incipient, or they're just above the horizon, just below the horizon. But what it shows is that the 80 solutions we model are not the only tools that we have. It's not our total tool set going for the next 30 years. The humanity is brilliant. It's incredible. And we have 20 of them in this book. We're doing another book called E2. It's called 60 More Coming Up. And these are just, we just regale them at the office. We just say, God, people are amazing. And this guy Brian Van Herzen, PhD in physics, and he has a Cessna 337, and a glaciologist friend of his said, when you fly over Greenland to Europe every year, we should count the melt ponds, and he did. In 2001, he said, well, there's thousands of them. And then 2 years later, he was flying over, and he said, well, they're more like melt lakes now, actually. And then 2 years later, he flew over again, and it was like a lake, a really, really big lake. And who got it? How fast the ice sheet was melting. And he invented this. This is big frames made of recycled PET under the water. Salt water doesn't break down PET for some reason. And there's these pumps that basically are actuated by the rise and fall of water. And they have these tubes that go down to the thermocline to bring up the cold, nutrient-laden waters below, which are now being stopped by these big heat bubbles, causing by 97% of the heat from increased warming is going into the ocean, not the land. 97% is going there. And so the natural circulation is slowing down and stopping. So it brings up the cold, nutrient-laden water, and you have then phytoplankton, zooplankton, algae, kelp, fluoride fish, feeder fish. You have the whole ecosystem comes in weeks. It only takes weeks before they do one in Hawaii, and I think 6 weeks they had a whale shark. They're vegetarian, they want to kelp, I mean, so he's talking about restoring the productivity of the oceans. 99% of the marine, of the oceans in tropical areas are marine deserts. There's no life at all. This is hydrogen boron fusion. We're running out of time. It's cool, put it that way. They were 17 years in stealth because they know that fusion is where governments dig big holes in the ground and take bulldozers full of money and put it in and bury it. And the scientists say it's 30 years off, but it's coming, And so Dr. Glenn Seaborg was the founder, he said now that. And they said 17 years in stealth. They've raised $500 million. Just raised $265 million last month, another 265. People who are close to the technology obviously think it's going to work. I'd say it's 20 months. They have one more milestone to go. I followed them for 11 years as a journalist. I think they have one more milestone to go, which is not the most difficult one. This is baseload power. It's clean. If the reactor goes down, shuts off, you can start it with 100 generators. I mean, it's actually a very cool technology. This is repopulating the mammoth steppe. And it's really about bringing animals back to the subarctic circle. We wipe them out as hunters, the Clovis people and others. And what happens is when there's grass there and there's ruminants and, Yakutian horses and elk and muskox and reindeer, in the winter they brush away the snow to get at the dead browse to eat, when it's, dark and everything. And the temperature of the soil goes down 2 degrees centigrade, which protects methyl hydrates in the permafrost. And so it's a permafrost protection solution. It's just brilliant. They already have a Pleistocene park. This is building with wood. And the highest building, wood building now is going up is the CLT building, Beneficial Bank in Portland. It's 12 stories. And these buildings are more fireproof than steel and concrete buildings. I know, it's counterintuitive. Big impact. This is the last one. I named this one. It could be called the cowbuck solution too, but it's, remember the joke, a panda bear walks into a bar. This is a cow walks onto a beach. And what it is, a farmer in Prince Edward Island, Joe Dorgan, noticed that the farm, he's a dairy farm, and most farms in Prince Edward Island are near the ocean, actually, when you think about it, but he noticed that the cows are eating seaweed produced from milk. And so he asked the local, and he said, you should talk to this scientist. And why? He's like, what's going on? He said, well, because methane production is, so inefficient, and so therefore it's suppressing methane production. And so they did an experiment where they fed lots of seaweed to a few of the dairy cows and put plastic bags on their head and, measured the emissions and for cows, but for science. And sure enough, it worked, but they had a lot of kelp, and impractical, expensive, but instructive. And so the scientists heard about somebody in Queensland who was doing the same work, And they got together, he went down to Queensland, and they just tried to find something that would mimic what the kelp is doing, seaweed. And they found something called Asparagus taxiformis, which is native Hawaiian seed, delicious actually. And if you feed it in a 2% level into sheep or goats or cows or cattle, methane production is reduced 70 to 90%. You know, and it's so cool. And how it was discovered. So remember the marine permaculture guy. You know, the guy who's going to put these frames under the water and grow. Those two are working together and raising money to grow Asparagus saxifragus on marine permaculture. And what marine permaculture does is because kelp sequesters carbon faster than any plant above or below. I mean, that's number one, is that you deacidify the ocean. You know, and you produce protein, because you produce fish, right? And so, and lastly, is there a business case? I love that question. I don't get it from you, but I do get it from business people, and I say, wow, business case. I'll tell you the business case for this. You tell me the business case for double glazing the planet, destroying the oceans, and clear cutting of tropical forests, and poisoning everything else in between. You know, now this question itself is so interesting because it sort of implies that their business is just about money. You know, but it turns out that when we added the numbers, I said 12 weeks ago, we hit the total button. We have to make sure we don't double count. It's system dynamics. It's a complex model. And it turns out that if we institute these solutions over the next 30 years, we'll save $78 trillion. Save money. In other words, what's the cost? The cost is zero. There's no cost at all. And I want to just read you just an excerpt from one of our greatest U.S. scientists, Matt Damon. Spoiler alert, he did come back from Mars, okay? So, but remember at the end of the movie, if you saw it, I mean, he was the wise, elder, so to speak, and he went to a class of newbie astronauts, and he was asked to address them, and this is what he says, so pay attention because this could save your life. He says, when I was up there, did I think I was going to die? And he said, yes, absolutely. And that's what you need to know going in, because it's absolutely going to happen to you. This is space. It does not cooperate. This is atmosphere. It doesn't care what we think. It doesn't cooperate. Right? He didn't say that. I'm saying that. At some point, everything is going to go south on you. Everything. And you are going to say, this is how it's all going to end. So, now, you can either accept that, or you can go to work. That's all it is. You just begin, and you do the math. I love that part. You do the math. You solve one problem, and you solve another, and you solve the next one, and the next one, and if you solve enough problems, you get to go home. And that's what this is about. Let's go home. Let's not waste a minute thinking that we can't do it, or that it's impossible, or that somebody else is going to do it for us, or that we need somebody at the White House who understands it. We would like that, but we do not need it. To act, to support, to enlist, to engage, to implement these and many other solutions. Remember that pie chart where it shows all those little tiny solutions? The little tiny ones? There's no names on them, so tiny, right? Note that in order to achieve drawdown, you need those as much as you need the big ones. So this idea we should focus on the big ones, oh yeah, for sure. There is no small solution. That's what I'm trying to say. Is there small people? Is there lesser species? Is there a lesser star? Is there lesser, that thinking is the thinking that God is always focused on the big ones. Solar wind, it's like all of them together. And the ones that seem marginal and small are extremely important. So it's a matter of like, do you resonate with it? Not resonate, let's do it. Help it. Figure it out. And some people ask like, well, how does this relate to politics? I don't know. We'll see. But we do know one thing, and that is that the Commonwealth of Nations, 52 nations, former British Commonwealth, the Secretary General, the Honourable Baroness Patricia down in Scotland, the former Attorney General of the UK, from Dominica, a force of nature, unbelievable, has adopted Drawdown as the template to reverse global warming and to institute economic and ecological regeneration for all 52 nations in the Commonwealth. And that's almost 1/3 of humanity and 1/4 of landmass. She saw the book early on PDF form and said, let's go. And that is for real, and that's happening. And the research we're doing from now on will present it. So, I just want to say, we can do this. And so, you know, there's two ways to look at it. You know, global warming and climate, it's happening to you. Well, dang. That's unfair. They did it. I wasn't involved with that. I didn't make the decision. You know, I mean, let's sue them. You know, they're bad people, and I'm really upset about it, and I'm a victim, obviously. You know, I mean, the to preposition is a dangerous preposition, is what I'm saying. The preposition is for. It's happening for you. This is happening for us. This is a gift. This is an offering. This is feedback from the only home we know, which is planet Earth, and it's feedback from the atmosphere, and it's begging us to transform everything we do and reimagine it to make a far kinder, more generous, compassionate, beautiful, productive world than the one we have today. And that's what this is about. Thank you so much.
Wow. You know, I've seen this before, but every time I see it again, I find it awesome. It made me think, and every time I see it, I think about it in more depth. It makes me, I think it makes all of us think, and it makes all of us think about solutions and not just be afraid of the problem. Because when we look at the problems and the scale of the problem of climate change, it is just overwhelming. And when we see solutions, and especially when we see solutions that are so diverse and that are quantified and that are real, we can have hope, and we see that we can actually solve this problem. So that's the power of Drawdown to me. I think it's enormously powerful at the global level, which this of course is, but also at the local level. Maybe not all of these little boxes that we saw can be applied here in Southampton or in East Hampton, but many of them can. I wish we had that chart that he showed with quantifying each box, whether it's energy use or buildings or food and all of these things. I wish we had an analysis of that for the South Fork. It would give us a map which we could use to prioritize and to have different departments and different individuals and different people work on. We don't have that. I think we need to at least establish some kind of an estimate of that. But the bottom line here is that we have very little time to bring these solutions to bear. A few years, maybe 10 years. The IPCC says 12 years, by which we will have to reduce carbon dioxide levels by 40%, which is an enormous reduction. And by mid-century, we have to be at zero. The towns of Southampton and the town of East Hampton have set 100% renewable energy goals, which is wonderful. We're the only ones in New York State that have set such visionary goals. But as we know, we've got a lot more work to do. So thank you for letting us think and see the solutions and see those solutions quantified. Now, if each one of us picks one of those boxes, we've got the whole thing solved.
Okay. Number one, thank you, Dart, because when she sent me the link, I knew about Drawdown, but I didn't really know anything about Drawdown. And this part of Drawdown, to me, is so much more than the book. And what's really brilliant of what Paul Hawken has done is the fact that he's engaging people. So he's got Dar, and now he's got all of us. And I am really proud to say that one of those amazing smiling faces in the chart of all the people all the experts, is the woman who now runs the project I co-founded in Panama. And yeah, and she's amazing. So she's part of it. And every one of those young faces, they're part of it. And so it's way more than a book. And we can do it. Thank you, Dr.
You're welcome. We'll have a public comment later, opportunity later. So, yes, I was blown away by this, and it just felt like the world opened up for me, and this was better than sliced bread. So I said, what can I do? And I started to write myself a chart, and it seems like what I want to help do is broadcast Drawdown. And I'd like to have that happen on the federal level and on the regional level and the local level, and I would like to engage with other people in working in all those different ways. So I had the opportunity to go to Omega Institute for a weekend with Paul Hawken. It was called Drawdown Learn. There was a lot of emphasis on education. What was offered there, on your sheets that are underneath your chairs, there's a link to all of the notes that were taken at that. So there's an opportunity to see curriculum, to see all sorts of fabulous material. But I want to tell you about one particular thing that a group got together with Drawdown and did, and I think it's a valuable tool for all of us. It's called Drawdown Eco Challenge. And the Northwest Earth Institute, which has been doing eco challenges for a while, have paired up with Drawdown to make a specific challenge for 3 weeks in April. And I can only imagine what might happen if we all chose to take this eco challenge. That we went back to our organizations and said, hey, our school, let's challenge Bridgehampton School, and this organization, let's challenge another law organization. It's interesting to see what some of these challenges are. So there are, how many different sectors? I think about 9 different sectors or so. You can go into their site, and then you can choose actions that you want to take in each of these for those particular 3 weeks. Of course, you can use it as a guideline for any time. So here are the other arenas of challenge. And it's very interesting to see some of the organizations. There are banks here and schools and architecture offices, all sorts of different things. So on that sheet that I gave you, I am hoping that you all might consider taking this challenge. We have a few other people who are going to present some instant impacts that we can leave here with today and make a big difference. So I'd like to invite up Lynn Arthur, who has been dedicating herself to creating a green energy solution for the town of Southampton. And I am going to show a quick video that.
Question for local government. How often do you get an opportunity to offer your citizens a program that will save them money, give them more choices, and not cost a penny? No cost to the municipality, with benefits to the community. Probably not very often, right? Well, community choice aggregation, or CCA, may just be the answer. But what is it? Community choice aggregation goes by different names in different states, but the program is more or less the same wherever it's available. In deregulated energy states, governments pass state legislation that grants municipal leaders the ability to pass local laws, allowing them to aggregate all of the residential and very often small commercial energy consumers in their community. By aggregating or combining your home's energy usage with all your neighbors in the community, economies of scale are created, generating enormous buying power for consumers and increasing the likelihood of getting much lower energy prices than would otherwise have been possible by shopping on your own. Aggregation programs only impact the supply portion of your bill, while the other half, the delivery portion, remains exactly the same. This delivery portion of the bill is where the utility makes its money, not the supply, and that's why the utility doesn't mind a bit about CCAs. It has no impact on their bottom line. By starting a community choice aggregation program and aggregating the residents in your community, the energy supply portion of the bill is reduced. Budget stability for participants is created, and the local utility company continues to provide a single bill to ratepayers for both delivery and supply. Just a single bill. The benefits. Protection over volatile energy prices. A simple, low fixed price that provides budget stability and savings to residents in the community. We can even provide a renewable green option for your community. Community choice aggregation lets you take control of your community's energy rates and pass the benefits onto your constituents. With hundreds of CCAs in operation, good energy makes it turnkey simple, from start to savings.
Great. So in Westchester County, 135 ratepayers, small businesses and households have saved $15 million over the last 2.5 years under the CCA program. They're the first in New York State. Whoops, the Public Service Commission, good catch, no? Well, I'll just hold it. The Public Service Commission authorized this program in New York State in 2014, and the only program right now that's on its feet is in Westchester. So the Sustainability Committee recommended to the town board of Southampton that we look into this because we wanted to get some of those savings ourselves. Why not, right? Why not here? We happen to know that in Southampton, with all of our incorporated villages, we use about 750 million kilowatt hours per year. And what that equates to is 1.1 billion pounds of CO2. So if we're able to get one of these programs on its feet here in Southampton, that's what we would save. And I was so inspired by Paul Hawkins' talk because, you know, the first thing that when we do these presentations and outreach that people say is, well, what is LIPA going to say? How is PSEG going to react? Well, let's find out. You know, let's enable legislation, start the evaluation process, see if we can do it here, if we can get a similar benefit, 100% renewable energy. Isn't that worth pursuing? So the legislation, the town board has been very good at working with the committee for about a year. The public hearing is scheduled for January 22nd, 6 p.m. at the Hampton Bays Community Center. And walking out here tonight, there's 3 things you can do. You can show up at the public hearing and say, yeah, town board, I think you should look into this. The second thing you can do is send an email to the town clerk, and again, expressing support. You want to see if these benefits are doable here locally. And the third thing you can do is, we have a letter of support that Dieter, who's the committee chair, has, and we'll have that in the back of the room. But if you would like tonight, because you don't have time to do either one of those other options, but you want to show your support for this idea to see if we can embrace it here in Southampton, kick the tires on it a little bit, if you would just add your name and your address on this page, we are going to go to the podium and share all that information on the 22nd. Thank you, Doris, so much for putting this together.
And Don Matheson, who's from East Hampton, I have the pleasure of meeting tonight. And we are going to have a little video from him as well.
For local government.
Oops.
We should do the same with carbon dioxide. We should do the same with carbon dioxide, where the stakes are even higher because carbon in the atmosphere is literally destroying the planet. So how would we do it? We'd start with a low price on carbon, say $10 for every ton we put into the air. The price would then gradually rise over time, and this would give energy companies a real reason to save money by reducing carbon pollution. It would also encourage them to spend and invest more on non-carbon energies like solar, wind, and hydropower. Now, it is true that putting a price on carbon could make our electricity bills more expensive, at least in the short term. But there's an easy solution to that. All the money collected by the polluters would go into a big fund that would then be divided up and sent to every American. So even if your electricity bill were to go up $10 a month, you'd get back at least $10, if not more.
The group that I am with, Citizens Climate Lobby, Citizens Climate Lobby has been going for about 10 years. There are more than 20,000 volunteers around the country, and each of us, wherever we are, focus on our congressmen and our senators. 1,000 of us go to Washington every year and call on every member of Congress. So this has been going on for years, so the ones who've been there know about Citizens Climate Lobby and our proposal, which is now there are actually, for the first time this year, there are 2 bills that have actually been proposed with joint sponsorship from Republicans and Democrats. As Bob Dylan says, the times are changing, and you're beginning to hear a lot more about this. The Yale Climate Study says that 81% of the people in Suffolk County understand that climate change is real and that we should be doing something about it. They don't know what we should be doing about it. So on the first thing on that drawdown, it tells you what these 2 bills are, and the only thing that will overcome a legislator's desire for money from the fossil fuel industry is when they see a tipping point that it's going to cost them more votes by not doing something than they can buy with the money from the lobbyists. The only way they're going to find that out is if we tell them. So we urge everybody who is concerned about this, whether you believe Lee Zeldin will do anything about it or not, to call him, send him emails, and say, support these 2 bills. Lee has said publicly he now understands that climate change is real and we should do something about it. But so far he has a terrible voting record. We have to scare him, pester him, beg him, sweet talk him, continue to educate him. So I ask you all to look at that first thing. It's got, we should contact Lee Zeldin, Charles Schumer, and Gillibrand. Those are the only people on our team. We've got to push them. And be aware that there are thousands and thousands of people doing the same thing to their congressmen and senators all over the country. Sooner or later, we'll break through.
So I don't have a video, and I only managed to get 1 photo. But anyway, they're monarch butterflies. So I run the Perfect Earth Project, and we promote landscape land management without chemicals, without synthetics, which would be fertilizers and pesticides. So when Dara asked me to do this, I was thinking, I don't know what, I hadn't really ever made a strong connection to climate change, even though, of course, in nature, everything's connected. There's no question about that. So I thought I'll make a little list of the things that I can just pop up quickly that are connected. And I was sort of surprised at how easy it was. So one thing is that we know that with climate change will become increased temperatures and drought. Drought and increased temperatures cause ecosystems to change, to become disturbed, and they'll be moving. So ecosystem disturbances cause increases in invasive plants. Invasive plants are being traditionally dealt with by spraying with Roundup. Roundup is a glyphosate. We're learning more and more about how dangerous glyphosates are to us, and Perfect Earth has traditionally really focused on human health, children, pets, and the planet. So I know about that, and it is causing in itself. So the Roundup then causes a lot of disturbance, which feeds back into climate change. Changes in temperature are causing increases in insect pests, and so we've noticed mosquitoes with Zika. Everybody knows about ticks. What is our response? More spraying, more disturbance. The spraying is killing the exact same things that they're using, are killing butterflies and bumblebees because they're not target specific. So when you kill ticks, even if you're using something that is labeled as organic, it has side effects. Nothing is target specific. So before you kill things, you really have to consider the consequences. I understand that there are problems. We have to think about them more carefully. Heat and drought destroys the soil microbiome. The soil microbiome is what keeps plants healthy and resilient, something else we're learning a lot about. Typically now when we destroy the soil microbiome, what do? Add more fertilizers and further destroy the microbiome. Pesticides kill the microbiome, so when we add more fertilizers and more pesticides to plants that are decreasingly resilient, we do more damage. And resilient soil sequesters carbon. And soil is the biggest carbon sink other than the ocean that we've got. And so by applying fertilizers and pesticides, we are destroying one of our largest opportunities for carbon sequestration. Then an interesting one, the melting of the Arctic ice is now starting to release DDT and other pesticides that were banned years ago that were trapped in the ice. They're melting into the ocean, they're getting into the food column, you're eating it. So just on a home level, like one thing that is an immediate response, simple, grass clippings. If you leave them on the lawn, they go back into the soil and actually produce carbon and keep it in the soil, and they feed the lawn. So you reduce your fertilizer needs. Grass clippings sent to the dump produce methane. Methane is 72 times more powerful a greenhouse gas than carbon. So it may seem simple, it may seem small, but these things, as Paul Hawken beautifully points out, are extremely important. And to me, it's all about a way of thinking. So what we ask people to do as a starting point is to create a new relationship with a piece of land. Ideally, hopefully you have one, because once you do it with one, you can spread it to others. But basically, you've been living together, and we want you to get married. And that means no cheating, right? It's a whole different way of thinking. Do not use synthetic chemicals, because there is always a better alternative, and it's a much more interesting relationship. Because if you cheat, the whole idea of the vow is kind of gone. Because it's much more rewarding to find a better solution. And the better solutions are way more interesting than killing something. Because that's just, it's rather superficial, and it has a lot of, what does he call it, regrets. There are always regrets. So I'd love you all to consider going home, getting married to your property, and staying true to it. And then once you've done that, tell everybody else. Thank you.
When I was about 8 years old, I first heard about something called climate change or global warming. Apparently that was something humans had created by our way of living. I was told to turn off the lights to save energy and to recycle paper to save resources. I remember thinking that it was very strange that humans, who are an animal species among others, could be capable of changing the Earth's climate. Because if we were, and if it was really happening, we wouldn't be talking about anything else. As soon as you turn on the TV, everything would be about that. Headlines, radio, newspapers. You would never read or hear about anything else, as if there was a world war going on. But no one ever talked about it. If burning fossil fuels was so bad that it threatened our very existence, how could we just continue like before? Why were there no restrictions? Why wasn't it made illegal? To me, that did not add up. It was too unreal. So when I was 11, I became ill. I fell into depression. I stopped talking and I stopped eating. In 2 months, I lost about 10 kilos of weight. Later on, I was diagnosed with Asperger's syndrome, OCD, and selective mutism. That basically means I only speak when I think it's necessary. Now was one of those moments. For those of us who are on the spectrum, almost everything is black or white. We aren't very good at lying, and we usually don't enjoy participating in the social game that the rest of you seem so fond of. I think in many ways that we autistic are the normal ones, and the rest of the people are pretty strange. Especially when it comes to the sustainability crisis, where everyone keeps saying that climate change is an existential threat and the most important issue of all, and yet they just carry on like before. I don't understand that, because if the emissions have to stop, then we must stop the emissions. To me, that is black or white. There are no grey areas when it comes to survival. Either we go on as a civilization or we don't. We have to change. Rich countries like Sweden need to start reducing emissions by at least 15% every year. And that is so that we can stay below a 2-degree warming target. Yet, as the IPCC have recently demonstrated, aiming instead for 1.5 degrees Celsius would significantly reduce the climate impacts. But we can only imagine what that means for reducing emissions. You would think the media and every one of our leaders would be talking about nothing else, but they never even mention it. Nor does anyone ever mention the greenhouse gases already locked in the system, nor that air pollution is hiding a warming, so that when we stop burning fossil fuels, we already have an extra level of warming, perhaps as high as 0.5 to 1.1 degrees Celsius. Furthermore, does hardly anyone speak about the fact that we are in the midst of the 6th mass extinction, with up to 200 species going extinct every single day. That the extinction rate is today between 1,000 and 10,000 times higher than what is seen as normal. Nor does hardly anyone ever speak about the aspect of equity or climate justice, clearly stated everywhere in the Paris Agreement, which is absolutely necessary to make it work on a global scale. That means that rich countries need to get down to 0 emissions within 6 to 12 years with today's emission speed. And that is so that people in poorer countries can have a chance to heighten their standard of living by building some of the infrastructure that we have already built, such as roads, schools, hospitals, clean drinking water, electricity, and so on. Because how can we expect countries like India or Nigeria to care about the climate crisis if we, who already have everything, don't care even a second about it or our actual commitments to the Paris Agreement? So, why are we not reducing our emissions? Why are they in fact still increasing? Are we knowingly causing a mass extinction? Are we evil? No, of course not. People keep doing what they do because the vast majority doesn't have a clue about the actual consequences of our everyday life. And they don't know the rapid changes required. We will think we know, and we will think everybody knows, but we don't. Because how could we? If there really was a crisis, and if this crisis was caused by our emissions, you would at least see some signs. Not just flooded cities, tens of thousands of dead people, and whole nations leveled to piles of torn down buildings. You would see some restrictions, but no. And no one talks about it. There are no emergency meetings, no headlines, no breaking news. No one is acting as if we were in a crisis. Even most climate scientists or green politicians keep on flying around the world, eating meat and dairy. If I live to be 100, I will be alive in the year 2103. When you think about the future today, you don't think beyond the year 2050. By then, I will, in the best case, not even have lived half of my life. What happens next? The year 2078, I will celebrate my 75th birthday. If I have children or grandchildren, maybe they will spend that day with me. Maybe they will ask me about you, the people who were around back in 2018. Maybe they will ask why you didn't do anything, while there still was time to act. What we do or don't do right now will affect my entire life and the lives of my children and grandchildren. What we do or don't do right now, me and my generation can't undo in the future. So when school started in August this year, I decided that this was enough. I sat myself down on the ground outside the Swedish Parliament. I school strike for the climate. Some people say that I should be in school instead. Some people say that I should study to become a climate scientist so that I can solve the climate crisis. But the climate crisis has already been solved. We already have all the facts and solutions. All we have to do is to wake up and change. And why should I be studying for a future that soon will be no more, when no one is doing anything whatsoever to save that future? And what is the point of learning facts in the school system, when the most important facts given by the final science of that same school system clearly means nothing to our politicians and our society? Some people say that Sweden is just a small country and that it doesn't matter what we do. But I think that if a few children can get headlines all over the world just by not going to school for a few weeks, imagine what we could all do together if we wanted to. Now we're almost at the end of my talk. And this is where people usually start talking about hope. Solar panels, wind power, circular economy, and so on. But I'm not going to do that. We've had 30 years of pep talking and selling positive ideas. And I'm sorry, but it doesn't work. Because if it would have, the emissions would have gone down by now. They haven't. And yes, we do need hope. Of course we do. But the one thing we need more than hope is action. Once we start to act, hope is everywhere. So instead of looking for hope, look for action. Then, and only then, hope will come. Today, we use 100 million barrels of oil every single day. There are no politics to change that. There are no rules to keep that oil in the ground. So we can't save the world by playing by the rules, because the rules have to be changed. Everything needs to change, and it has to start today. Thank you.
Now let's take a few minutes and turn to a few of our neighbors. Where are we? How has this impacted us? What's next for us?
Could I just ask, I want to tell folks about two pieces of legislation in New York State that will actually will get us to 100% renewable by 2050. And these are, one of them will pass, and the other one is now being written. It's just very quick, and it's something most of us don't know about. I just found out about it, and I really want to spread the word, because it's what we can do right here.
Okay, we're going to spread the word in a minute. Right now, we're going to talk with one another, and then we're going to have sharing things that we want to ask other people to do. Okay, Francesca? Just a sec. So turn your chairs around, whatever you need to do. Just take a couple of minutes and notice where you are and what's next for you. If you're not a sharing kind of person, that's fine. You can be quiet and just sit there.